Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. Today we're making a dowel maker. Well, kind of. You'll see what I'm saying. Let's dive in. I have most of the parts for a Stanley 44 dowel maker, but I don't have any of the cutters. And I thought, what if I were actually to make a cutter that could go on there? Well, first I just need to figure out how to make a cutter. So I watched a few YouTube videos a while ago, and I've been letting it roll around in my brain, and so I figured I'm going to give this a try. Now, one of the things I have is I have no idea how to do this, and I just have a few ideas in my brain, and I want to experiment and have some fun. And sometimes I just want to go into the shop and make a pile of shavings and enjoy the day. And so today we're just going to be experimenting. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we're going to have a lot of fun along the way, and I'm just going to enjoy the shop. I'm using a series of auger bits with the largest that will fit the square dowel into it, and then they each go down a step at a time, 1/16 of an inch, each one only going in about 1/8 of an inch or so to create a cone. And then eventually we will pop through with the last one, and we got a hole through, and this last one is about 5/8 because I want to start with a 5/8 inch dowel. And so you can see how this tapers from one side all the way to the other. We need to plane a taper on this to match the taper of those inside, and I should be able to break through and just be touching the top here. This is an old block plane iron. I figured it would work just about right. Before we get into this, I'm just going to use a rat tail and smooth out some of those steps a little bit just to make this an easier transition. Then we're going to sharpen up the block plane iron and make sure everything is the way we want it to be. For this, I'm just experimenting, so I'm just going to screw it on the top with some larger washers and hold it in place. And on this pine one, I'm figuring out the geometry and seeing what will work and what can I learn from this. So we're going to experiment. And one of the nice things about cheap 2x4s is they're cheap. Or at least they used to be. What happened? Actually, these are from leftover projects. I actually got them from a friend's house. So I thought I would taper down one end of it to get it started. And then I tried it without it being tapered and just started with it being square. And both of them they were bouncing around in there and they weren't working the way I was wanting to. And it just wasn't working as I thought. And so I thought maybe I'm just wiggling it back and forth by hand. So maybe I should do it with a drill. Well, I put it into the drill and it snapped off in there. And so I had to pull out what had snapped off into the drill. So that didn't quite work. I needed to come up with some way of holding the piece without sticking in the drill, and I just couldn't find a good way to do that. So then I thought, well, let's just do some modifications and move this around and tweak it. And I moved it a half dozen times, and every time it seemed like it would get a little bit better, and then it would just jam and cut, and then this corner broke out on it. And so I realized I need to make this out of something stronger than simple pine. So let's get out some live oak. Yeah, live oak. If this isn't strong enough, then ain't nothing strong enough. And this is a very twisted grain, and so everything will work through. So we're going to be starting with the same method and just taking it step by step until we get a 5/8 inch hole coned all the way through. Again, I'm going to bring in the rat tail and smooth out a little bit. I'm not taking it perfectly smooth. I'm just kind of hitting the high spots and getting myself a cone there. We'll smooth it out to the angle of the cone inside until it just touches through. And I'll see a little bit on one side and almost touching the other side. Another couple passes, and now, ooh, look at that. We've got a hole all the way through. I'm going to come in with a chisel and just clean out those edges and make them smooth and sharp. And then we can put the iron on. On this first one, I ended up having to pre-drill them all because it's live oak, and so we need to mark the holes and get them in. I'm moving the holes in a little ways so I can move the iron around and adjust it as needed. I'm going to pre-drill it, and the oak really requires a lot of good pre-drilling. Otherwise, it's just going to clog up and bind up. On this one, I actually ended up putting the iron a little too high. I just touched the top of the cone, and so that meant when it was spinning, it actually never touched the iron. So I needed to then take it apart and trim it down. Here you can see how it's just not even touching the iron. It's up a little bit too high. So I took the iron off and then hit it with the plane to bring it down a little lower. And here you can see the corner of the iron is actually cutting in. And I'm wondering if that is my issue there and how I would go about stopping it from digging into the corner. But after taking a few shavings, we can put it back on. We already have the holes pre-drilled, so we can just run these in and experiment with it. And I'm trying to figure out how far do I need to push it in because now it's below the level, so it should be touching. I'm trying to move the cutter back a little ways so that it's not actually touching at the outside edge. So we just have that 5/8 inch segment rolling on it. And that was starting to work, but it wasn't quite where I needed to be. So I did a little more tweaking on it and tried it again. And the rest of this is more of the same. I'm just attempting it and trying it again, and then now that doesn't work. So let's move it over to this side and use the plane adjustment method to tap it around and then screw it back in and try it again. And I'm missing something on this. At this point, I'm starting to realize there's something in the geometry. It's not just a simple pencil shaver as I would have thought. Maybe I have this right and I'm just doing it with oak and that's the problem, but I would like to be able to make my own oak dowels. So I need to rethink how this actually is supposed to work. And that is not the answer. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board and I'm probably going to go talk to a few people and look at a few YouTube videos and learn what's going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, how can I get something better than this? Because that is not a functioning, usable dowel. So there you have it. I like to experiment and try new things, and I don't really know how to make one. I've seen a couple random videos on it in the past, and I thought, I can do that. And I always like learning from mistakes. It's fun for me to try things and see how they come out. And sometimes I grasp the concepts better with that. And in this case, I made something that didn't quite work out. Now, what I'm basically trying to make is a Stanley 77. And I've got this one and a couple other parts for it, but I don't have a full one. And the whole ones are like $1,200 to $2,000. So someday I might get all the parts in order to make one. But I thought I want to make a dowel maker because I want special dowels. Now I do have a dowel plate and I've used this quite a bit, and this is great for dowels that are up to 6 inches or so. I could also use a hollow auger, but this is only good for about 3 inches or so, and it's more designed for putting a tenon on the end of a stick for Windsor work. So if I want to make something that's 2 feet or longer, I need to make a dowel maker where I can run it all the way through consistently. But there's something on the geometry side that I am missing. And I'm actually interested to see what it is because I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to have to go do some more research, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Is there something that you have found that will actually explain it and show off what is happening? I'd love to hear that. Throw that in the comments. And I'll do a video in the future actually going through and explaining what I've learned and why it all actually works. And hopefully at some point I'm going to have a video showing the Stanley 77 when I get all the parts for it someday. So I hope you like it, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments, not just because I want to learn from them, but also because I love seeing those. Those do help out the channel. Anytime you put a comment down below, helps the channel. It gets us in front of more people because YouTube likes it when you comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the join button. Thank you. Speaking of the join button, if you want to go even farther, there's that, as well as all of these names over here. Those are the fantastic, wonderful, benevolent, and gorgeous people over on Patreon. Because without patrons, we wouldn't be here. We are completely sponsored by you and everyone who helps us out. So thank you. And if you'd like to find out more about that, you know what to do. Description down below, all that type of thing. Thank you. I think I'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Quite often I do like to make things that don't actually end up working out the way I want to. But whatever I do, I never end up throwing in the dowel.